Very good morning, students. So, in this lecture, we are talking about the life cycle and the development of Ascaris. And now, this particular slide, this is the very first slide of the lecture. It is showing the presence of Ascaris in the abdomen or the intestine of this particular child. Now, if you demarcate here, this is the presence of the Ascaris, and the child is suffering from the disease Ascariasis. Now, if we talk about the life cycle of Ascaris, it starts with the outgoing of the two types of eggs from the body of the human. So that particular child which is having Ascaris in the intestine, it will be giving out two types of eggs in the feces. Now, if we demarcate this particular thing into our slide, it will be that this is the feces which is given out of the human. And this feces is containing, number one, these are the unfertilized eggs. So they will not be going into the development or they will not be going into the further development of the Ascaris because they are unfertilized. So the second type which is present in the feces of the eggs is the fertilized eggs. So these are the eggs which are coming out into the feces on the open grounds wherever we have got the unhygienic conditions or the open defecation. So these fertilized eggs, they are present over those areas. Now, these fertilized eggs, they are the diagnostic stage of Ascariasis. Now, there are stool tests which are going on for these children which are having Ascariasis. So, if you have the presence of the fertilized and the unfertilized eggs in the stool which are passed by those children, so they are suffering from Ascariasis. So, this is a diagnostic stage. Now, if we go further, now the first type of egg, that was unfertilized egg, that will not go into development. So this is very, very clear. And if we go with the fertilized egg, so this fertilized egg will go into the development and the cleavage starts. So when the cleavage starts, the first cleavage, it breaks this particular fertilized egg into two cells. And then we have the formation of the morula. So this is a many celled stage. Now this is the stage where we have a large number of cells developed from a single fertilized egg or the zygote. Now after this, we have the form of the larva developed. This is called as the rhabditoid 1 larva. Now this larval stage is formed within the capsules in the ground, and these are the infective stages. Now this is a very, very important thing to note, that this is the infective stage. Now why it is called as infective stage? Because these rhabditoid 1, they are present in the feces, and now they are present on the open grounds. They are openly present on the grounds. So whenever anybody will take in those rhabditoids, they will be infected by the Ascariasis. So that's why rhabditoid 1 is taken as the infective stage. Now here it has been shown that this particular rhabditoid 1 is taken up by the man. Now this particular human, which is shown in this particular diagram, it is giving off the feces and it is again taking in the rhabditoid 1. But this is not the case. It can be one of the condition, but the feces of one human will be dispersing the fertilized eggs to the next persons. So this is the dissemination of the fertilized eggs from the open defecation of humans. So this is a very, like you can say, unfortunate kind of condition where you have so much of unhygienic conditions that we don't have any kind of toilets in our homes. So we have to go for the open defecation. So if we are going for the open defecation, we are spreading these fertilized eggs, and more of the humans can be infected by rhabditoid 1. So that is the case of the infection. Now, if we go further, then up till now, we know that the rhabditoid 1 has reached other humans by ingesting it. Now, the next slide, it is giving you the overall cycle of the Ascaris. Now, students, this is a very, very important slide, and we should be going step by step. Now, if we go with the very first form, we had taken in the rhabditoid larva 1. So that was taken in by other humans, which were like they were in the grounds, and when they came home back, they have not washed their hands properly. So with the ingestion, these rhabditoid larva 1, they were ingested into their bodies, and they were taken into the digestive system. So this particular arrow is showing the ingestion of the rhabditoid 1 stage. Now if we go further, this particular rhabditoid 1 larva, it is transforming with the help of the molting. Now with the process of molting, this is the first molt, it transforms itself to the rhabditoid larva second stage. Now this is, everything is going inside this particular human, which has ingested the rhabditoid 1 larva. Now rhabditoid 2 larva stage has been formed inside this particular human, and this is present in the stomach. So rhabditoid 2 now is present here in the stomach of this particular man. Now, this particular stage, it goes to the intestine of the man. It reaches the intestine, the rhabditoid 2. Now, from here, this particular larva, it bores into the blood vessels. Now, this is a very, very important thing. Now, when it is going to the blood, it can wander in your whole of the body. So, it may go to the liver through the portal system. So, it is now going to the liver. Now, here a yellow arrow has been shown that from the intestine, it goes to the liver through the portal system. So, this is the hepatic portal system. So, after this, it can go to the heart. So, this is a very, very dangerous kind of situation. So, it is going to the heart now. Now, after the course, ultimately it goes to the lungs. So, this is the most important position where it has to reach for its next molting. Now, whenever the rhabditoid 2 larva form, it will reach the lungs. It can go for the second molting. Now, after reaching the lungs, it goes for the second molt, because the first molt was from the first to the second stage. Now we have the second molting of this rhabditoid. It is present now in the lungs. Now, student, after the second molting, we have our third larval stage formed. Now, these third larval stages, they are not given any particular name, but these are the third stages of the larvae, and they are present in the lungs. Now these third larval stages, they further go for the third molting, and after this third molt, we have got the fourth larval stage. Now this fourth larval stage, it is going into the trachea of this particular human. Now this is the most important transportation, you can say, phenomenon in the case of Ascaris. Now from the lungs, we all know that we have a particular respiratory system. Now here you can very well see these are the lungs, and from the lungs they are going upwards into the tracheal system. Now this is a very, very important, you can say, mechanism of transportation. So from the lungs they are coming towards your pharynx or towards your mouth. So after this, from the trachea they go to your larynx. So this fourth larval stage is going to the larynx, and from this larynx it goes back into your esophagus. So if you remember, this particular person has taken in the rhabditoid 1 through the esophagus. The fourth larval stage is coming back to the esophagus. So this is a very important translocation process. Now here you can very well see that rhabditoid 1 has also got into this particular human through the esophagus, and here it is again going to the esophagus, and from esophagus now it is going back into the stomach. Now this is not rhabditoid 1, but this is the fourth larval stage which is going into the stomach of the human. Now after this it again goes to the intestine of the human. Now here it is undergoing the fourth molting or the last molting of its life cycle, and it is transforming into an infant Ascaris. Now this infant Ascaris is present at the intestine level of this particular human. Now this infant Ascaris, after further differentiation, it is going for making the adult Ascaris in this particular human, and now this human is infected with Ascaris and it is now having Ascariasis. So students, overall if we take the life cycle of this particular animal, it has got 4 molts. So after 4 molts, it is becoming the adult Ascaris in the intestine of the human, which is taking in the rhabditoid 1 larval form. And this particular stage, or the last Ascaris stage, it is again forming the fertilized eggs. Now this human will again be forming the fertilized eggs after fertilization, because we have got many Ascarises in the intestine of the human. This is not a single Ascaris. So after the fertilization, we have got fertilized eggs. Those will be given out by this human through the feces again, and those will be present on the grounds if we have got the unhygienic conditions for this human, and they will be converted into the rhabditoid 1, and if somebody ingests this rhabditoid 1, the whole of the life cycle will be repeated again. So that will again be taking in the Ascaris. So students, that was the whole life cycle of Ascaris in 2 diagrams, or you can say 2 slides. Now if we go further, there are some modes of transmission. So it occurs mainly by the ingestion of the contaminated food or water with the eggs. So this is the particular stage for the mode of transmission. So if we are taking in the eggs with the first larval form or the first rhabditoid larvae, so we'll be having the Ascariasis in the coming time. So second part is that occasionally by the inhalation of contaminated dust with the eggs, So we can take it with the dust also. The children playing in the contaminated soil, as we have seen in the previous slides, they may acquire the parasite from their hands. So as we have discussed the particular situation in the case of unhygienic conditions. So if there is an open defecation and some of the children they are playing along that particular place, they can take in the eggs, the fertilized eggs, by the contamination from their hands. Now, if we take up the symptoms of ascariasis, so there are a number of symptoms. There may be, the first point is that there are no symptoms as such. So if you have few ascariasis in your intestine, so there are like 10 or 20 ascaris in your intestine, there will be as such no symptoms to be shown in your body. Then, if the stage 1 reaches, then what happens? The worms larvae in the bowel attach to the bowel walls. So this is the very first stage. If we talk about the second stage, the worm larvae they migrate to the lungs, as we have discussed in the life cycle. So then we have the fever and the breathing difficulty. So here, as they have migrated to the lungs, so we can have some difficulty in the breathing zone or the respiratory system. Then we can have coughing and pneumonia. So there may be a symptom of coughing in case of ascariasis. Now, nobody can link coughing with ascariasis, but this is a direct link between the respiratory system and ascariasis. So this is a very, very important point to note. Now, if we go further, in the third stage, the worms, they enter the small intestine and mature into the worms and remain there to feed. So here they have matured and they have been converted into the adult ascaris. Now, after this third stage, when you have ascaris in the intestine, if you have less number of ascaris, we have got no symptoms. But if we have a substantial number of ascaris in the intestine, we can have some symptoms. So first are the abdominal symptoms. So this is the abdominal discomfort. You can have some discomfort in the intestine. So this is the intestinal blockage. So if the number of ascaris in the intestine it reaches quite high, suppose they are 300 or 400, so they can block your intestine. It may be partial blockage or a complete blockage. So in case of even partial blockages, we have to go for operation. We have to operate and we have to take out those ascaris physically. Then we have the severe abdominal pain. So this is one of the symptoms of ascariasis. We can have the vomiting, restlessness, disturbed sleep, worms in the stool. So if you are passing worms in the stool, this is definitely ascariasis, or it can be anything which is matching to it, but that can be a very foolproof symptom of ascariasis. So if you have the worm in the vomit, this is again ascariasis, because in the life cycle we have studied that the ascaris, after the formation of the larval stage, it is migrating to your trachea and to the larynx. So from there it can come out in the vomit. So students, this is a very common thing that the worm can come out from your mouth. So you may have respiratory problems. So there can be some respiratory problems like coughing. It can come out also through the vomit. So this is again a symptom of ascariasis. Now if you go with the diagnosis of this particular animal, so the diagnostic stage is the presence of the unfertilized egg or the fertilized egg in the feces. So here the diagnosis, it depends upon the identity of the worm or the egg. So this is a very important thing. So first we have the stool examination. So we have to test the feces of a particular child or a human. So if we have the adult worms or the eggs, it can be unfertilized or it can be fertilized egg. So if we have seen these three things in the stool examination or any one of them, so we have scariasis, we have detected this particular disease. Next is the sputum examination for seeing the larva during the migration in the lung. So if we have some sputum taken out of the larynx of that human, we have to test that particular sputum. Now, if there is any third stage larva in this particular secretion, then we are confirmed with the scariasis. Then we have the eosinophila as the indicator of the parasitic infection. So eosinophils, if they have increased in number, they can be one of the indicator of the parasitic infection. So there may be increase in the WBCs also. Now we have at the fourth point, which is the prevention. Now how to prevent ourselves from this particular disease or scariasis. Now keeping good sanitation conditions is very, very important, and this is the only way to prevent the infection from scariasis. Now if we consider the condition that we have taken in the eggs or the fertilized eggs or the rhabditoid one of the Ascaris, we are sure to have scariasis. So we have to keep good sanitary conditions, and we should avoid taking in those particular eggs or rhabditoid one. So this will be possible only by taking some precautions when we are going for open grounds where there can be some open defecation. We should be very, very particular with washing our hands, washing our feet when we come home. And this is a very good gesture if you go with this particular condition. If you can do this, this is very, very good thing for prevention of scariasis, that you take off your shoes or you take off your sandals or what you have wore in your feet out of the home. So you take off your shoes out of your room, or you should have a dedicated area of those particular footwear, and then you enter the home. This will be a very good preventive method. Second point is the pollution of the soil with the human feces should be avoided. So that means that open defecation should be avoided. That is only possible if you have the sanitary conditions in all the homes. But I think this is not possible here in India. But the government is behind this particular thing, that open defecation should be minimized and should be stopped. Now, third point can be the vegetables should be thoroughly washed in mild solution of potassium permanganate and properly cooked for use. Now, this point emphasizes on the need to take in the vegetables after washing. This is again a very important thing. Now, if we are taking in vegetables from that particular area where open defecation can happen, so these eggs or rhabditoid one can come with the leaves of your vegetables. So that should be washed. That is a very important thing again. Next is that fingers, nails, they should regularly be cut to avoid the collection of the dirt and the eggs below them. So these are very, very small structures. The eggs of the Ascaris, they are very small, and they can be collected in your nails, the nails of the children, and those nails should be cut regularly to avoid the contamination. Now the last point is about your regular hygiene that you are again taking every day, that hands should be properly washed with some antiseptic soap before touching edibles or eatables. So this is a very important gesture that you are taking care of every day in your daily life. and that should be taken as such for the prevention of Ascaris. So these are some of the points. Even after these points, if you get Ascaris, if you have got Ascariasis, then there are some drugs which are in the market. They can be albendazole, there can be some derivatives of this particular drug. So you can take those drugs and you can get rid of Ascariasis if you have less number of Ascaris. But if you have a large number of Ascaris, as we have seen in the first slide, in the case of abdomen of a child, then you have to go for some kind of operation. If they have partially or fully closed your intestine, then we have to go for operation. So students, that lecture is comprising the whole life cycle of Ascaris, its infection, its whole development, its carrying over, its prevention methods. So I think you are now have a physical picture of Ascariasis in your mind. So that's for now. Thank you very much.